What's Stephanie? I'm a rather imperfect person. I think I encourage comments and things on the channel, and then I punch back in ways that are just ridiculous. So my apologies if my first response is a little blunt and strong. I am trying to get better at this. Part of why I have this channel is to display the difficulties of learning a language, along with hopefully finding techniques that work for myself, as well as techniques that might help others who don't generally feel like it's their strongest skill set. However, in making myself vulnerable to all of that, I'm vulnerable and I react badly sometimes. So yeah, there's that. But in having a defensive conversation, defensive on my part, via the comments that are now gone in the comment section of a previous video, I realized a very important thing, and that is I've been talking about how difficult the listening is in the HSK test for me, and I haven't actually gone into detail on what the listening is, the content, the sentences or conversations, or even having you hear any of the listening. I think I played a little bit of the listening, but I don't think I've played enough. And now that the test is over and I'm in less of a scramble, I want to go back to one of the part 3. There's 3 parts of the listening in HSK. The first part of the listening for HSK 1 was like simple words. It was words. It was so easy. You'd look at the picture and you'd say if it was or wasn't that thing, and you can see my X's and whatnot. I tended to do the listening twice, I think it was about 2 months apart from each other, which I really liked returning to it and seeing how much more I could do later. The second part they gave you, can you tell I've like consumed this chapter? They gave you the pictures. All you did was listen, so I was trying to write down some keywords or some sentences if I could, but it was going too fast. And then you write down the letter of the picture that it was similar to. But that's not what I want to talk to you right now. I want to focus in, this is chapter 14, there's 15 chapters in the book. I no longer have the particular book for HSK1 because as you can see, I tore it up into chapters so I could easily carry it around. And because I had to print out separately the answers and transcripts, this, along with my Lightner cards for the day, already felt like quite a bit to carry around. However, I think for HSK2, I'm going to carry around the book and try not to mutilate it. Although if I need to, I will. It's just, how much stuff can you carry around on a daily basis, right? Anyway, so I'm going to try to do that. So this is the HSK2 course book, the standard course. I don't know if this is available globally, but it's super easy to find in China, and it's a standard course. This is for HSK2, but I'm going to be showing you the HSK1 listening today. I'm going to be talking about and having you listen to the HSK1 listening for part 3 for chapter 14. I don't have the cover anymore because I have mutilated the book. Okay, but that is the same series. They do it for all 6 of the levels. So, chapter 14, part 3. Here's what I normally do. I used to just go to the transcript, read it first, then go and listen without looking at the transcripts, and then come back and read as I'm listening to the transcripts. But I felt like since my reading skills are as they are in every language I've ever tried to learn or that I've used, such as English, my reading skills are far above my verbal skills. Which is sucky for you since I don't edit these videos. But anyway, I found that gave me too much of a lead with the listening. And since it's supposed to practice the listening, I started to cut out the part where I would look at the transcripts first. So what I'm doing instead is I'm just listening and selecting, part 3 is where they give you, that's just an example. They don't actually show you the dialogue in any of the other ones. What you have is just a list of answers, A, B, or C, and that's what you're supposed to pick. The entire thing is audible, and then you pick which one answers the question that's in there. Now, if you watched a listening video from weeks and weeks ago when I started doing this listening, you might remember that I was thoroughly confused because I thought it was a conversation. It is not. It is one person speaking, and then there's a person doing the questions. and then they switch the gender, or at least they switch the person that's saying it, and then they'll have, for the second round, because they'll do every question twice, or every number twice. In this case, it's 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So they'll do 11 twice, 12 twice, 13 twice, so on and so forth. But they switch the person that's saying it. So it sounds like it might be a conversation. It's very confusing until I could read and listen to more. So without further ado, let me just show you my notes for this one. I also put random notes all over the place. Over here, oh wow, I have a lot of notes on this one. The biggest note that I wrote is the questions in part 3 are really hard, especially word order. Shall I listen for question words the first time? The answer is no. I had to listen for any meaning that I could extract from it because it's so fast for me. As a language teacher, I was used to graded materials for different levels being graded to that language. I don't know if the language or the speed of the language is graded down to a slower level for HSK1. You'll have to be the one to tell me this because I don't know what to compare it to at this point. Again, I'm in Shanghai, and the language I hear around me is not only rapid, but it could be Shanghaise, it could be Putonghua, Mandarin Chinese. I just don't know yet, so I don't even know if I can compare the speed of that language with this. And honestly, it feels like people speak in shorter bits, shorter sentences around me than what I'm hearing in the HSK1 dialogue. So are they artificial conversations that never really happen? Probably. That's what most language learning material is, but it's all a stepping stone to the real stuff, unfortunately. So as I put in one of the comments that's still there, HSK, I picked HSK because it was with all the language learning materials that I touched within the first 8 or 9 months of learning different aspects about the language. I found that the materials available for the HSK test were the best materials for beginners, which is slightly terrifying, but it is the truth. All right, so number 11. What do you want first? I think we should listen to it first. So for time's sake, I think we'll just do number 11. We'll listen to it. Then I'll show you the transcript. No, we'll listen to it. I'll show you the choices. Or actually, as we're listening, I'll show you the choices. Oh, I should erase the answers. Shoot, I have to pause. Okay, now I am more ready. So as we're listening, I'll show you the 3 choices. If you can't read or aren't studying Chinese, don't worry about it. I think you'll still get an idea as I translate what's happening. Hopefully I can translate number 11. Then you'll still get an idea of the kind of things that are on this listening test. So here we go. Number 11. That's number 9. Be right back.
11. 我上午买了不少菜，中午做饭。
他上午做什么了
11.
我上午买了不少菜，中午做饭。他上午做什么了
Okay, so I feel it might be useful to do that again and to have the transcripts up as we're doing that. So again, it's sentence, question about asking you about what was just said, then they switch who's saying it, then the same sentence and the same question. At least that's what's supposed to be happening. 1 second, I gotta rewind.
我上午买了不少菜，中午做饭。他上午做什么了
And again. And again.
12. 这件衣服
Okay, that must have been twice. That was weird. Okay, normally it's twice. Did that play twice? I was so conscious about trying to get the focus of the transcript that may have been twice. All right, this is harder than it looks. Making this video with all of the technical. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So the sentence was 我想. And if you'll notice, the transcript is only in Hanzi. It doesn't have the pinyin, which is fine because I prefer it not to have it, but So 我上午买了小来? No, that's not lie. Is that cha? Ugh. 中午做 I don't know that last one. Hold on, let me listen one more time. Eleven. Okay, here we go.
11.
我上午买了不少菜，中午做饭。
Fun. Of course it's fun. Okay, and that was chai. That was cha. Okay. So, what the hell does that mean? Shangu is afternoon, I believe. Mai is to buy. At least this one is. Le is some sort of time particle, right? Shashao. Cha. Cha is tea. Shashao. I'm not sure I know that. I know sha is under, but it could be combined with things to be something else. Shao is much, and cha is tea. Zhongwu is also a time word. I believe that is exactly noon. I'm still working on the time words. Zhuo, I'm not saying right. So it's a much softer Z that I'm doing. Is to do, and what did I say the last one was? Fan is rice. Okay, so this is food oriented apparently. Now what is the question?
上午做什么了？
And you can see the question here, right here. And the question is, ta, she, shangu, that, I always confuse morning and afternoon, whatever time frame that is, that was at the beginning of the last sentence. So, which is to do, shama, which is what. So what does she do at that time, that shangu? And I'm going to turn on Pleco here because it's really bugging me that I can't remember if that's afternoon or late morning. Whoops, would help if I could. Come on. No, shau is afternoon. What is shangu? Shangu is morning. Okay, so the question is, what did she do? What did she do in the morning? And I'm assuming the answer is, because the translation of the first sentence is, wo, I. So did they have it just women reading it? Because it'd be funny if they switched the narrator and had a man saying I. Oh, ha, ha, because it's so funny. I don't know. So wu shangu, which is I, morning, my. Huh? Why do they have her buying? Okay, buy. Le must be doing past tense. Shao, a lot of cha. Oh, she bought a lot of cha. Zhongwu, zuo fan. So in the afternoon I ate rice. I did rice. I cooked rice. Oh, I think shuo fan. I think that might be a collocation for cooking now that I'm remembering it. It's something I've seen in the listening, but I haven't seen in the actual content yet. It's weird, but I'm pretty sure it's a collocation, I think. I don't know. Anyway, the question was, what was she doing in the morning? She was buying chai. So I try to answer the question before looking at the answers, at least when I have time. When I'm studying, I do. During the test, I didn't have time. I actually had to look at the questions first, and then before the listening even started, and kind of hone in on those words. So the answers, your options are A, let me show you just the answers. There you go. A, my cha, which is to buy tea. B, zuo fan, which is what she did in the afternoon, which is to, I'm assuming, cook rice. And C, my pingyo, which is to buy apples. She did not buy apples, so I'm guessing it's number A. And that is correct. But you can see the process. that this takes. It's, I mean, just listening to it a number of times, like when I first started doing this listening, I would listen to it, I think 4 to 6 times per question, and there's usually about 4 or 5, depending, as you get up the level, the chapters in the book, it had more and more. In chapters 1 and 2, there was no listening. In chapters 3, it had like 4 questions. In chapters 4, no, the later chapters had 5 questions, and that's as far as they got. So even just listening to it over and over and over and over and over, it was hard to understand exactly what was happening. Even if I got keywords, I couldn't necessarily get time words. I couldn't necessarily get those collocations that I'm talking about and things like that. So I had to go back to the transcript and read it as they were listening to it because I wanted to get used to the things sound-wise that were making it difficult. And part of this is because I was so focused on the look of the language, because that's what fascinates me, but there's so much overlap in the sound of the language, because a lot of characters can have different sounds. A lot of characters that have the same Hansa character, the same sound, can have different meanings. So there's a lot of confusion if you don't do sound and visual together, which I didn't fully realize when I first started this adventure, but I definitely know now. So I'm trying to catch up on getting comfortable with the sounds of the language. But even if I did focus equally on opinion and the tones with the look of the language and the strokes that I did and all of that, even if I did, it's still getting those, what are they called? Segmental sounds into full form sentences. There's still a leap there. Sound-wise, there's a lot of blending that goes on. There's dropped sounds that's part of the blending, and there's a lot of differences when you go from an individual sound to an entire sentence and to a question. So there's that. So I guess my question for you is, one, if you took the HSK1 test, how did you feel about the listening? Did you feel like it was very doable? Did you feel like you were prepared for it? Did you feel like you could understand what was happening and you could answer the questions, or did you feel like you could kind of answer the questions? For those of you that know Chinese rather well, what do you think about this number 11? Do you think that is regular speed of speech? Do you think that is a slower speech that is indicative of language learning materials for lower levels? I'm very curious if that sounds slower than how the language would normally be used. To me, it sounds rather fast. I can hear occasionally they'll slow down for a word, but I feel like I hear that out in the wild too. I'll be able to catch certain words, people kind of extend a little bit longer, and that may be part of the third tone that I'm hearing, or it may not be. I'm not entirely sure what's happening there, but I do feel like that does happen in natural speech in maybe Putonghua that I'm hearing around me. I don't know. I personally, after a few weeks of this, which is not a lot of time, feel like this is quite fast for this level. But it gets faster. I did the first listening in HSK Level 2 course book that I showed you earlier. I did the first one yesterday, and I just wrote bunches of question marks around the questions. So I think I need to progress more vocabulary-wise before I can do those, but I'm still going to be shadowing them because that'll help me get used to the sounds as I'm getting used to the vocabulary. So I added a lot of the listening words, a lot of the key listening words and the answers I kind of front loaded those in my list of HSK2 vocabulary to put into the Lightner box. I front loaded those in so they would go in early, so I would get a quick review of those so I could do those exercises and get used to those sounds. So at this point, at the beginning of studying for the HSK, the Lightner box vocabulary was definitely the majority, and then the listening came in about a month. I think about a month before. Wait, I know the exact dates. This was in February. I think February, about 2 months before the test, is when I started to do the listening. But by do, I mean struggle. So 2 months of the listening. I thought it was just one. Wow, that was 2 months. Oh yeah, because I had that period where I was away. I was out of the country twice on vacations. So it didn't feel like 2 months because I lost some time in the trips. So 8 weeks minus a couple of weeks, I'd say about 5 or 6 weeks worth of listening. And it feels like these exercises are rather fast for a beginner level HSK1 listening exercise. But who knows, maybe by the end of HSK2 I'll get much more familiar with it. I don't know, I used to think that HSK1 should be the easiest one, but it's also the first test where you're dealing with it's the first time in the language where you're dealing with full exchanges, where you're dealing with, not exchanges so much as, well, part 2 they might have some conversations, but they do actually have some conversations, but in general, up until that point, till you start studying for HSK, there's a lot of just heavy vocabulary, single words, studying or practicing tones, learning pinyin, and doing like those individual kind of isolated exercises. And then you move up to HSK and there's full-on sentences, and there's questions where the word order is super different than English. And so for me, the switch to full sentences and full questions is rather new. As time goes on, those frequent structures will become second nature. That's just what happens. So I'm glad they have them in HSK1. In HSK2, I can tell you already, the first page for the listening, where in HSK1 they had just single words and pictures, that's no longer there. Even in chapter 1 that I did yesterday, it is full sentences and pictures, and the vocabulary is much, much harder. So just from HSK1 to HSK2, things get bumped up amazingly so. But yeah, but it's good, because when I read these stinking newspapers years from now, they're gonna have sentences, not individual words. So it's good to get used to sentences. That is the point. I want longer exchanges. It's just challenging. It's all challenging. Of course it is. Anyway, so I hope that gives you an idea. I picked a chapter that was pretty far into the book, because showing you the earlier ones I don't think would have been as indicative of the test itself. And I feel like that was a pretty good representation of the latter part of the book and the HSK1 test in itself. Actually, in that example, they had 2 different time frames. She did something in the morning, she bought tea in the morning, and then she made rice in the afternoon. And they did that a lot in the practice tests and in the exercises, where they put 2 like pieces of information and you had to pick one by listening for the other parts of the sentence. And in the test they didn't. When they had numbers, they had 1 number in the sentence, and then they'd ask you a question related to that number. So it was actually easier listening-wise in the test, because they didn't throw in those sentences where there were multiple bits of the same kind of information, where you had to listen better. So that was nice. That was nice. Thank you, HSK. Thank you, Han Han. No, wait, Han Han runs the test, but who makes the test? The Chinese government? I don't know. I don't know. Okay. Anyway, that's it. I hope this clarifies some things on the kind of information that you see on the HSK test. As far as the listening goes, yeah, I don't know. I can see a fair bit of this vocabulary being useful for reading newspapers later on. The structures, I've been told, are more formal in the newspapers, but vocabulary-wise is, other than audio, which won't appear in newspapers, is the hardest for me. So yeah. So I'm building up vocabulary by taking tests, because I'm in China. Do as the Romans do, right? Da, da, da. All right, so thank you so much for watching, and more soon.